Everyone, I give you Dr. Betty Sue Flowers.
Thank you. That was lovely. I really, really appreciate that. It's such an honor to be here. And I know a lot of you, and it's just great to be back in my hometown. New York is exciting, but Austin's really, really wonderful. And I'm very honored to be in the presence of the other speakers here. You have such a great day ahead of you. So I want to get started just by setting a couple of the themes that I think arise in the nature of this conference. And when you think about bridging the gaps, in a way, we don't have any choice anymore about bridging gaps. It's a cliche that we're all globalized. Gone are the days when you could just put a sign, GTT, gone to Texas, and then go out where there wasn't anybody you knew and start over again in that sense, because we're all so interconnected that there's no way you can get away. I was recently, last week, working on a project and emailing back and forth, and I know only the boomers email. Everyone else does text messaging, but still, I was emailing, and the person that I was working with on the other end, after a few back and forth, she said, well, why don't you just come on over and let's talk about it? And I said, well, I can't come over. I'm in Singapore. Up until then, it hadn't mattered where either of us were. So it's indicative, I think, that we can work as if we are side by side, no matter where we are. I went to my brother's house recently, and he works with he's on a company where a lot of the people are in Tennessee and the rest are in Amsterdam. And he had his Macs all arranged, 3 Macs with 3 screens, 3 faces on the screens. They were Skyping back and forth. All of you could repeat these, tell other stories of this interconnectedness. But I think it means that space is becoming less and less important. And so is age, gender, ethnicity, and all these other physical markers that you can disguise if you're in Second Life. Have you noticed how everyone's so beautiful in Second Life? Even in the first life of Facebook, I'm amazed to find something else changing. You know, in the old days, it was as soon as you didn't like staying up late and your knees were a little creaky, and so you would end up sitting on the porch with the other people about your age telling stories. So the only people who knew about your ongoing life were people of your age group, just for physical reasons. Now, because of Facebook, my aunt is keeping up with the daily activities of my son. And grandparents are keeping up. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe not. I don't know how often these young people think when they put the pictures up. You know, if they friended their aunt, she may be saying some things to her niece and nephew. We don't have to be there when it happens. We can be ongoingly in the lives of other people. We don't have to be there in space. So space is less of a barrier than ever before. And time is less of a barrier. My son may be staying up late in his ska band, and he talks about it. My aunt reads it the next morning at 8 o'clock when he's barely awake. So there's that. The time doesn't really need to be there. We don't have to be there then. We're all globally interconnected. And what's exciting about this, it's a new era in the history of humanity. It's utterly unique. I would go so far as to say that it's a new era in the evolution of humanity. The evolution of evolving into global interconnectedness. But are we really connecting? We are connected, but are we really connecting? What does it mean really to connect? If you look at the word connect, it has 2 parts to it. From the Latin com, very often com evolves into com. From community, communion, all those words that start with C-O-M, communion, and nectari, which means to bind, connection, to bind together. I want to talk about here 4 principles of connection. And always, if you would, in the back of your mind, what does it mean to be connected, but also connecting? Connecting while we are connected. The first principle I would call Communications 101. All of you here in communications know this. It's usually put this way: know your audience. That's how it's usually put, know your audience. I want to put it a slightly different way. enter the world of your audience. That is a little different from knowing your audience. For this reason, enter the world of your audience. There's a remarkable thing that happens in hierarchy, which is what our human species has always been involved in, hierarchy. Male, female, masters, servants, bosses, workers. You know what I'm saying? There's always a hierarchy. A peculiar thing about hierarchy. The lower end of the hierarchy usually knows the upper end better than the upper end knows the lower end. But the upper end thinks they know the lower end better. Servants always knew their masters personally, better than the masters knew the servants. Women always knew men better than men knew women. This is because of a certain kind of observation up that always happens. And in an interesting way, children know their parents better than parents know their children. That, I think many of you parents would disagree with. But I want to make that claim. There's a way in which children know their parents. They are watching with a kind of openness to learning, to being in that world. They're striving to be in that world. To survive, they have to understand that world. The world of the boss doesn't have to understand the world of the worker. Should, maybe, but doesn't have to. Now, this is an important thing because one of the things that keeps us from connecting when we think we're connecting is that we think we know the audience, the other, the child, the whatever. We think we know, but we don't actually enter that world. And different things happen when you enter the world.